At first, this treasure was more than 20 feet long and as thick as a barrel. After I struck it once and expressed my feeling that it was too large, it grew smaller. I wanted it smaller still, and again it grew smaller. For a third time I commanded it, and it grew smaller still. When I looked at it in the light, it had on it the inscription, "The compliant golden hooped rod. Weight 13,500 pounds. Stand aside, all of you. Let me ask it to go through some more transformations." He held the treasure in his hands and called out, "Smaller, smaller, smaller." And at once it shrank to the size of a tiny embroidery needle, small enough to be hidden inside the ear. Awestruck, the monkeys cried, "Great King! Take it out and play with it some more." The Monkey King took it out from his ear and placed it on his palm. "Bigger, bigger, bigger," he shouted, and again it grew to the thickness of a barrel and more than 20 feet long. He became so delighted playing with it that he jumped onto the bridge and walked out of the cave. Grasping the treasure in his hands, he began to perform the magic of cosmic imitation. Bending over, he cried, "Grow!" and at once grew to be 10,000 feet tall, with a head like the Tai Mountain and a chest like a rugged peak, eyes like lightning and a mouth like a blood bowl, and teeth like swords and halberds. The rod in his hands was of such a size that its top reached the 33rd heaven and its bottom the 18th layer of hell. Tigers, leopards, wolves, and crawling creatures, all the monsters of the mountain and the demon kings of the 72 caves, were so terrified that they kowtowed and paid homage to the Monkey King in fear and trembling. Presently he revoked his magical appearance and changed the treasure back into a tiny embroidery needle stored in his ear. He returned to the cave dwelling, but the demon kings of the various caves were still frightened, and they continued to come to pay their respects. At this time, the banners were unfurled, the drums sounded, and the brass gongs struck loudly. A great banquet of 100 delicacies was given, and the cups were filled to overflowing with the fruit of the vines and the juices of the coconut. They drank and feasted for a long time, and they engaged in military exercises as before. The Monkey King made the 4 old monkeys mighty commanders of his troops by appointing the 2 female monkeys with red buttocks as marshals Ma and Leo, and the 2 bareback gibbons as generals Bang and Ba. The 4 mighty commanders, moreover, were entrusted with all matters concerning fortification, pitching camps, reward, and punishment. Having settled all this, the Monkey King felt completely at ease to soar on the clouds and ride the mist, to tour the 4 seas and disport himself in 1,000 mountains. Displaying his martial skill, he made extensive visits to various heroes and warriors. Performing his magic, he made many good friends. At this time, moreover, he entered into fraternal alliance with 6 other monarchs, the Bull Monster King, the Dragon Monster King, the Garuda Monster King, the Giant Lynx King, the Matacha King, and the Orangutan King. Together with the handsome Monkey King, they formed a fraternal order of 7. Day after day they discussed civil and military arts, exchanged wine cups and goblets, sang and danced to songs and strings. They gathered in the morning and parted in the evening. There was not a single pleasure that they overlooked, covering a distance of 10,000 miles as if it were but the span of their own courtyard. As the saying has it, one nod of the head goes farther than 3,000 miles. One twist of the torso covers more than 800. One day, the 4 mighty commanders had been told to prepare a great banquet in their own cave, and the 6 kings were invited to the feast. They killed cows and slaughtered horses. They sacrificed to heaven and earth. The various imps were ordered to dance and sing, and they all drank until they were thoroughly drunk. After sending the 6 kings off, Wukong also rewarded the leaders great and small with gifts. Reclining in the shade of pine trees near the sheet iron bridge, he fell asleep in a moment. The 4 mighty commanders led the crowd to form a protective circle around him, not daring to raise their voices. In his sleep, the handsome Monkey King saw 2 men approach with a summons with the 3 characters, Sun Wukong, written on it. They walked up to him and, without a word, tied him up with a rope and dragged him off. The soul of the handsome Monkey King was reeling from side to side. They reached the edge of a city. The Monkey King was gradually coming to himself when he lifted up his head and suddenly saw above the city an iron sign bearing in large letters the three words, "Region of Darkness." The handsome Monkey King at once became fully conscious. The region of darkness is the abode of Yama, King of Death. He said, "Why am I here? Your age in the world of life has come to an end." The two men said, "The two of us were given this summons to arrest you." When the Monkey King heard this, he said, "I, Old Monkey himself, have transcended the three regions and the five phases. Hence, I am no longer under Yama's jurisdiction. Why is he so confused that he wants to arrest me?" The two summoners paid scant attention. Yanking and pulling, they were determined to haul him inside. Growing angry, the Monkey King whipped out his treasure. One wave of it turned it into the thickness of a rice bowl. He raised his hands once, and the two summoners were reduced to hash. He untied the rope, freed his hands, and fought his way into the city, wielding the rod. Bull-headed demons hid in terror, and horse-faced demons fled in every direction. A band of ghost soldiers ran up to the palace of darkness, crying, "Great kings! Disaster! Disaster! Outside there's a hairy-faced thunder god fighting his way in." Their report alarmed the 10 kings of the underworld so much that they quickly straightened out their attire and went out to see what was happening. Discovering a fierce and angry figure, they lined up according to their ranks and greeted him with loud voices. "Hi Immortal, tell us your name. Hi Immortal, tell us your name." "I am the heaven-born sage Sun Wukong from the Water Curtain Cave in the Flower Fruit Mountain," said the Monkey King. "What kind of officials are you?" "We are the Emperors of Darkness," answered the 10 kings, bowing. "The 10 kings of the underworld. Tell me each of your names at once," said Wukong, "or I'll give you a drubbing." The 10 kings said, "We are King Qingguang, King of the Beginning River, King of the Song Emperor, King of Avenging Ministers, King Yama, King of Equal Ranks, King of the Tai Mountain, King of City Markets, King of the Complete Change, and King of the Turning Wheel. Since you have all ascended the thrones of kingship," said Wukong, "you should be intelligent beings, responsible in rewards and punishments. Why are you so ignorant of good and evil? Old Monkey has acquired the Tao and attained immortality. I enjoy the same age as heaven, and I have transcended the three regions and leapt clear of the five phases. Why, then, did you send men to arrest me?" "Hi Immortal," said the 10 kings. "Let your anger subside. There are many people in this world with the same name and surname. Couldn't the summoners have made a mistake?" "Nonsense. Nonsense," said Wukong. "The proverb says, officials err, clerks err, but the summoner never errs. Quick, bring out your register of births and deaths, and let me have a look." When the 10 kings heard this, they invited him to go into the palace to see for himself. Holding his compliant rod, Wukong went straight up to the Palace of Darkness and, facing south, sat down in the middle. The 10 kings immediately had the judge in charge of the records bring out his books for examination. The judge, who did not dare tarry, hastened into a side room and brought out 5 or 6 books of documents and the ledgers on the 10 species of living beings. He went through them one by one, short-haired creatures, furry creatures, winged creatures, crawling creatures, and scaly creatures, but he did not find his name. He then proceeded to the file on monkeys. You see, though this monkey resembled a human being, he was not listed under the names of men. Though he resembled the short-haired creatures, he did not dwell in their kingdoms. Though he resembled other animals, he was not subject to the unicorn. And though he resembled flying creatures, he was not governed by the phoenix. He had, therefore, a separate ledger which Wukong examined himself. Under the heading Soul 1350, he found the name Sun Wukong recorded with the description Heaven-born stone monkey. Age 342 years. A good end. Wukong said, I really don't remember my age. All I want is to erase my name. Bring me a brush." The judge hurriedly fetched the brush and soaked it in heavy ink. Wukong took the ledger on monkeys and crossed out all the names he could find in it. Throwing down the ledger, he said, "That ends the account. That ends the account. Now I'm truly not your subject." Brandishing his rod, he fought his way out of the region of darkness. The 10 kings did not dare approach him. They went instead to the Green Cloud Palace to consult the Bodhisattva King K, Itagarba, and made plans to report the incident to heaven, which does not concern us for the moment. While our Monkey King was fighting his way out of the city, he was suddenly caught in a clump of grass and stumbled. Waking up with a start, he realized that it was all a dream. As he was stretching himself, he heard the 4 mighty commanders and the various monkeys crying with a loud voice, "Great King! How much wine did you imbibe? You've slept all night long. Aren't you awake yet? Sleeping is nothing to get excited about," said Wukong.